Commander Jake Martinez stood at the viewing port of the shuttle as it approached the massive space station. The structure was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It stretched for miles in every direction, with towers and domes connected by glowing bridges. Lights flickered across its surface like stars. "First time seeing something like this?" asked Dr. Lisa Park, moving to stand beside him. She was the missions expert on alien cultures and ancient history. "Nothing could have prepared me for this," Jake replied. His voice carried the weight of responsibility. He was leading humanity's first official contact with the galactic community. Everything had to go perfectly. Captain Ryan Bell joined them at the window. The military advisor's jaw was tight as he studied the station's defenses. "Look at those weapon platforms. They could destroy our entire fleet without breaking a sweat." "Let's hope they don't want to," said Communications Officer Amy Foster. From her station, she had been monitoring alien broadcasts for weeks, trying to understand their languages and customs. Engineer Tony Clark looked up from his console. "Their technology is incredible. The power readings from that station are off the charts. They're using energy sources we can barely imagine." The shuttle docked with a soft thud. Jake straightened his uniform and checked his appearance one last time. He had trained for this moment for 2 years. First contact protocols had been drilled into him until he could recite them in his sleep. The airlock opened with a hiss. Jake stepped through first, followed by his team. The corridor beyond was vast and gleaming. The walls seemed to be made of some kind of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. Strange symbols were carved into the surfaces, forming patterns that hurt to look at directly. 3 aliens waited for them. First was tall and crystalline, its body made of what looked like living glass. When it moved, light refracted through its form in rainbow patterns. The second alien was shorter and covered in tentacles that moved constantly. Skin was a deep purple color and seemed to shift like oil. The third looked like a giant insect, with 4 arms and compound eyes that reflected everything around them. "Welcome, newcomers," said the crystalline being. Its voice came from speakers built into the walls. "I am Council Speaker Zethalar of the Zerathi. These are Council members Vorthmax of the Morphins and Clichter, all of the Kithera." Jake stepped forward and bowed slightly. "I am Commander Jake Martinez, representing the United Earth Alliance. Thank you for allowing us to visit your station." Zethkalar's form shimmered. "Your species has done well to reach this far from your homeworld. Most newly evolved races take much longer to develop faster than light travel." "Newly evolved?" Lisa whispered to Amy. Something about the phrase bothered her, but she couldn't put her finger on what. The insect-like Kithera clicked its mandibles. "Your technology is quite primitive but functional. We have seen worse from species at your development level." What? Ryan's face darkened at the casual insult, but Jake placed a warning hand on his arm. "We are honored to learn from more advanced civilizations," Jake said diplomatically. Vorthmax's tentacles writhed. "Yes, there is much you must learn. Your weapons are crude, your ships are slow, and your energy systems are inefficient. But this is normal for a species that has only recently left its birth system." The aliens led them through the station. The corridors were filled with beings from dozens of different species. Some walked on legs, others floated, and a few moved in ways that defied understanding. They all stared at the humans with expressions that ranged from curiosity to pity. "How long has this galactic community existed?" Lisa asked as they walked. "The current Galactic Council was formed 12 million years ago," Zethkalar replied. "Though civilized species have been traveling between stars for much longer," Amy nearly stumbled. 12 million years. "Yes, we have had time to perfect our technologies and social systems. This is why we welcome newcomer species with such ceremonies. You have much to learn from those who came before." They entered a vast chamber filled with floating platforms. Hundreds of aliens sat or stood on them, all facing a central stage where the human delegation was led. The noise in the room was incredible, dozens of different languages being spoken at once, with translation devices providing running commentary. "Citizens of the galaxy," Zethkalar announced, his voice booming through speakers. We welcome the humans of Earth to our community. They are young and inexperienced, but they show promise." Scattered applause echoed through the chamber, but Lisa noticed that many aliens looked bored. This was clearly a routine they had seen many times before. "The humans will be given quarters in the newcomer wing," Zethkalar continued. "They will have access to basic facilities and educational materials appropriate for their development level. As with all newly contacted species, certain areas of the station remain restricted until they prove their readiness for advanced knowledge." After the ceremony, the humans were escorted to their assigned quarters. The rooms were comfortable, but clearly designed for beings considered inferior. The furniture was simple, the technology basic, and the location was far from the stations. "Important areas. This feels like being sent to the children's table," Ryan muttered as he examined their sparse accommodations. Lisa was studying the symbols carved into their quarters' walls. They looked familiar somehow, but she couldn't remember where she might have seen them before. The patterns seemed to tug at something deep in her memory. "Tomorrow, we begin the integration process," Jake announced to his team. "Cultural exchanges, technology demonstrations, and formal meetings with various species representatives. Remember, we're representing all of humanity here." As night fell on the station, the humans settled into their new temporary home. None of them could shake the feeling that something was not quite right about their reception. The aliens' attitude went beyond simple superiority. There was something else there. Something that felt almost like fear. Lisa lay awake, staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out why the alien symbols looked so familiar. In the darkness, she could almost remember where she had seen them before. The next morning brought a guided tour of the station's museum. Zethkalar led the human delegation through halls filled with artifacts from across the galaxy. Each display case told the story of different civilizations and their achievements. "This section contains relics from the most ancient species," the crystalline alien explained as they walked. "These civilizations reached the stars long before any current species evolved." Lisa stopped in front of a large display case. Inside was a collection of metal fragments that made her heart race. The pieces looked exactly like parts from human spacecraft, but the label read differently.
"Artifacts are the first ones,"
she read aloud. "Estimated age, 12 million years. "Ah, yes," Zethkalar said with what might have been pride. "The first ones were the most advanced species ever known. They disappeared long ago, leaving only these fragments behind." Lisa studied the metal pieces more carefully. The alloy composition looked identical to human hull plating. Even the welding patterns matched Earth manufacturing techniques. She glanced at Tony, who was also staring at the display with wide eyes. The tour continued to the next case. Inside was a crystalline data tablet covered in symbols. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. The symbols were the same ones carved into the station walls, but now she realized why they looked familiar. They were star charts, human star charts showing Earth's solar system and nearby stars. "What did these symbols mean?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. "Ancient navigation charts," Zethkalar replied. "The first ones traveled to many worlds. These charts show their home system, though its location has been lost to time." Amy leaned closer to the display. The star patterns were unmistakable. She had memorized those same charts during her navigation training. The bright star, marked as the homeworld, was clearly Earth's sun. In the next case were weapon fragments. Jake recognized the design immediately. They used the same quantum field principles that powered human plasma rifles, just built with different materials. "The first ones were warriors?" Ryan asked. "Among other things," the insect-like Clictorol answered. "They were builders, explorers, teachers. They shaped the early galaxy before vanishing without explanation." The tour moved on, but the humans exchanged worried glances. Too many coincidences were piling up. The artifacts looked human, the star charts showed human space, and the technology matched human designs. After the tour ended, Amy returned to her quarters and activated her communication equipment. She had been passively monitoring alien broadcasts since their arrival, but now she focused on private channels and encrypted messages. What she discovered made her stomach turn. The aliens weren't just dismissive of humans in public. In their private communications, they were afraid. The genetic markers match. She heard one morphin scientist say to another,
97%.
identical to the archive samples. Impossible, came the reply. The protocols have been in place for millions of years. They cannot remember. Amy recorded everything she could intercept. References to the old warnings, genetic locks, and what happened before appeared in dozens of conversations. The aliens were scared of something about humans, but they were trying to hide it. Meanwhile, Tony was having his own revelation. One of the station's power conduits had developed a fault. The aliens had asked him to repair it as a test of human engineering skills. What he found when he opened the access panel shocked him. The technology inside was human, not similar to human technology, but actually built using human design principles and materials. The fusion reactor core was identical to the ones used in Earth's power plants, just wrapped in alien-looking housing. Tony ran detailed scans of the components. The molecular signatures matched Earth-manufactured materials perfectly. Either the aliens had been copying human designs for millions of years, or humans had been in space much longer than anyone realized. That evening, the human team gathered in Jake's room to share their discoveries. The door was locked, and Amy had activated a signal jammer to prevent eavesdropping. "This doesn't make sense," Jake said after hearing all the reports. "How can human technology be scattered around a space station that's supposed to be 12 million years old? Maybe it's not human technology," Ryan suggested. "Maybe we developed our tech based on alien designs we found somewhere." Lisa shook her head. "The star charts show Earth's exact position, and look at this." She pulled out a small device and projected images into the air. "I took photos of some symbols from the restricted areas while we were touring. They're not just navigation charts. They're construction blueprints." The holographic images showed detailed plans for building faster-than-light engines, artificial gravity generators, and energy weapons. All the designs matched human technology exactly. "There's more," Amy said quietly. "I've been listening to alien communications. They're terrified of us. They keep talking about protocols and genetic markers and something called the Great Forgetting." Tony added his own evidence. "The station's power systems are human-built. It's not inspired by human designs, not similar to human technology. They are human technology with alien decorations stuck on top." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Either humanity had somehow influenced galactic civilization millions of years before Earth had intelligent life, or something much stranger was happening. "We need more evidence," Jake decided. "Lisa, can you access the restricted archives?" "Not legally," she replied. "But Ryan knows about infiltration techniques." Ryan nodded grimly. "It would be against direct orders. If we're caught, it could destroy human relations with the galactic community." "If we don't find out what's really going on," Jake said, "we might not have any relations left to destroy." The team spent the rest of the night planning their unauthorized investigation. None of them could sleep, knowing that everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the galaxy might be completely wrong. Outside their quarters, the ancient station hummed with power from reactors that looked suspiciously like human designs, while aliens who claimed to be humanity's superiors whispered fearfully about the return of something they called the First Ones. Lisa and Ryan returned to their quarters just before dawn. The download from the archive contained more information than they could process in weeks, but the basic truth was clear. Humans were not newcomers to the galaxy. They were the original. Rulers who had created every species now treating them as primius. Jake listened to their report in stunned silence. Amy and Tony sat frozen as the implications became clear. Everything they thought they knew about human history was wrong. "We need to verify this before we do anything," Jake said finally. "If we're wrong, accusing the aliens of lying could destroy any chance of peaceful relations." "We're not wrong," Lisa said firmly. She activated her portable display and showed them images from the archive. "Look at these genetic records. They show the exact DNA sequences the aliens used to identify us. We match the first ones perfectly because we are the first ones." Amy checked her monitoring equipment. Alien communications are getting more frantic. They know something is happening. I'm picking up references to emergency protocols and code words I haven't heard before. Tony examined the technical data Lisa had downloaded. These blueprints explain everything. The fusion reactors, the gravity generators, the faster-than-light drives. We didn't develop this technology recently. We're remembering it. Before Jake could respond, alarms began blaring throughout their section of the station. Security Chief Alina Ross burst into the room without knocking. "Commander, we have a problem," she said quickly. "Alien security forces are surrounding our quarters. They know we accessed the restricted archives." Through the window, they could see armed aliens taking positions in the corridors. The crystalline Zerathi carried energy weapons that hummed. With power, the tentacled morphins moved with surprising speed despite their bulk. Even the insect-like Kithra seemed ready for battle. "They're not here to arrest us," Ryan observed, studying the alien formations. "They're here to contain us. Like they're afraid we might do something dangerous." Jake made a decision that would change everything. "We're going to tell them we know the truth. If they want to discuss this, they can do it officially." He activated the communication system and requested an emergency session with the Galactic Council. Within minutes, Zeth Kaler's voice came through the speakers. "Commander Martinez, you have violated our security protocols. Accessing restricted areas is forbidden for newcomer species." "We know who we are," Jake said simply. "We know what we were. We know what you've been hiding from us." Silence stretched for long seconds. Finally, Zeth Kaler responded. "Come to the council chamber. Bring your evidence. It is time for the truth." The walk to the council chamber felt like a march to execution. Hundreds of aliens lined the corridors, watching the humans with expressions ranging from fear to awe. Word had spread quickly through the station that something momentous was happening. The council chamber was packed. Representatives from every known species crowded onto the floating platforms. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Jake stood before the assembled aliens and activated Lisa's display device. Images from the archive filled the air above the chamber. Genetic records, historical documents, star charts, and construction blueprints painted a picture that was impossible to deny. 12 million years ago, humans ruled this galaxy, Jake announced. "We built the first space stations, established the first trade routes, and created every intelligent species in this chamber." Chaos erupted. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages, while translation devices struggled to keep up. Some species seemed terrified, others angry, and a few appeared to be relieved that the secret was finally out. Zeth Kaler raised his crystalline form, and light blazed from his body until the chamber fell silent. "The human speaks truth," he said, his voice heavy with ancient sorrow. "We have kept this knowledge hidden for millions of years, following protocols established by the first ones themselves." The Morphin representative Vorthmax spoke next, his tentacles writhing with emotion. "Our ancestors were primitive creatures living in swamps when the first ones found us. They gave us intelligence, taught us to reach for the stars, guided our evolution into what we are today." "Clicked are all of the Kithra," added his clicking voice to the confession. "Every species here owes their existence to human intervention. We are all children of the first ones, following genetic programming and cultural imperatives left in our very DNA." Jake felt the weight of cosmic responsibility settling on his shoulders. "Why didn't you tell us when we arrived?" "Because your ancestors commanded us not to," Zeth Kaler replied. The final protocols were clear. When humans returned to the galaxy, they were to be allowed to choose their own path. We could not influence that choice by revealing their heritage immediately. Amy stepped forward. "The private communications we intercepted. You were all afraid." "Of us, yes," admitted Vorthmax. "The ancient records speak of human power and the civil war that split your empire. We feared you might try to reclaim your position as rulers, or worse, that you might repeat the conflicts that led to the Great." Forgetting, Lisa activated another display showing the final message from the last human emperor. The aliens fell silent as they heard their creator's words about choosing wisely between reclaiming their inheritance or forging a new path. "There is more you must know," Zeth Kaler said reluctantly. "The automated systems throughout the galaxy have been waiting for your return. Ancient weapons platforms, communication networks, construction facilities, They all carry genetic locks that will only respond to human DNA. As if summoned by his words, lights began flashing on control panels throughout the chamber. Ancient systems that had been dormant for 12 million years were awakening, sensing the presence of their creators. The galaxy itself recognizes you. Clicked are all observed with something that might have been wonder. Technologies we have never understood are coming online. Defenses we thought were decorative are revealing their true purpose. Jake looked around the chamber at the faces of species his ancestors had created and guided. Some looked hopeful, others fearful, and many seemed confused about what this revelation meant for their future. "We need time to process this," he said finally. "Humanity never asked to be rulers again. We came here as equals, seeking friendship and knowledge." "But you are not equals," Zethkalar replied sadly. "You are our creators, our teachers, our former guardians. The question now is what you will choose to become." The chamber fell silent, as everyone waited to see how humanity would handle the revelation that they were not newcomers to the galaxy, but its rightful inheritors. The revelation sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Within hours of the council session, every world with intelligent life knew the truth. Humans were not newcomers. They were the first ones, the creators who had vanished millions of years ago. Jake sat in his quarters reading reports from across the galaxy. The reactions were as diverse as the species themselves. Some alien governments immediately declared their loyalty to humanity, believing it was their destiny to serve their creators. Others rebelled against the idea that their entire civilization was built on human foundations. On the industrial world of Kepler Prime, Zarathi workers had shut down all production facilities and were waiting for human orders. On the ocean planet Aquatica, the aquatic hydrants were building massive temples to honor the returned first ones. But on the desert world of Sandros, the proud Draconi were preparing for war, refusing to accept human superiority. Colonel Nathan Price burst into Jake's room without knocking. It arrived on an emergency transport from Earth, along with a team of military advisors and government officials. "Commander Martinez, by order of Earth's command, you are to assume control of all galactic territories that formerly belonged to the human empire," Nathan announced. Jake looked up from his reports. "I'm not taking orders from you, Colonel. My mission is diplomatic, not military." "Your mission just changed," Nathan replied coldly. "We have an entire galaxy waiting for human leadership. Billions of aliens who were programmed to obey us. We'd be fools not to use this advantage." Amy Foster had been monitoring communications from Earth. "Commander, you need to hear this. The government back home is split. Half want to reclaim the Empire immediately. The other half think we should pretend the discovery never happened." Dr. Helen Wade, Earth's leading expert on galactic psychology, joined the conversation. "This is exactly what our ancestors feared would happen. The same arguments that led to the Civil War 12 million years ago. Do we rule or do we guide? Do we dominate or do we partner?" Through the window, they could see alien ships arriving at the station. Some came bearing gifts and offerings of submission. Others came armed for battle. The galaxy was choosing sides based on their interpretation of what humanity's return meant. Tony Clark's voice came over the communication system from the engineering section. "Commander, you need to see this. The ancient systems aren't just coming online. They're getting stronger. I'm reading power levels that could destroy star systems." Jake hurried to the engineering bay with his team. Tony stood before a massive display showing energy readings from across the galaxy. Weapon platforms that had been dormant for millions of years were charging their systems. Defensive shields around entire worlds were activating. Construction facilities were building new technologies without any orders from anyone. "It's all automatic," Tony explained. "The systems recognize human DNA, and they're preparing for what they think is the restoration of the Empire. If this continues, we'll have enough firepower to conquer every civilization in the galaxy, whether we want to or not." Lisa studied the ancient control interfaces that were appearing on screens throughout the station. These systems were designed to respond to the Emperor's bloodline. "They think Jake is the new ruler because he's human. Can we shut them down?" Jake asked. "Not without the Emperor's genetic code," Tony replied. "And according to the archives, Every human carries part of that code. The systems will respond to any of us. Colonel Price smiled grimly. Even better. We don't need to conquer anyone. The galaxy is handing itself to us on a silver platter. Before Jake could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Amy ran to her communication console, and her face went pale. Multiple fleets are approaching the station, she reported. The Draconi War fleet from the east, the Zentari Rebellion from the west, and at least 6 other species who refuse to accept human authority. Ryan studied the tactical displays. They're not here to surrender. They're here to destroy us before we can use the ancient weapons. Jake realized that the galaxy was on the brink of a war that could destroy billions of lives. The same conflicts that had torn apart the human empire 12 million years ago were starting again. He made a decision that surprised everyone. Walking to the main communication console, he opened a channel to every ship, every world, and every intelligent being in the galaxy. "This is Commander Jake Martinez of Earth," he announced. "I speak for humanity in this moment of revelation and choice." The galaxy fell silent. Billions of beings stopped what they were doing to listen to the words that would shape their future. "Our ancestors were your creators, your teachers, and your guardians. They built an empire that lasted millions of years. But they also made the hardest choice any species has ever made. They gave up power so that you could grow beyond what they had made you." Jake paused, feeling the weight of history on his shoulders. Today, humanity makes the same choice. We will not reclaim our empire. We will not rule over you as your creators. Instead, we offer something better. Partnership. Colonel Price started to object, but Jake continued. "The ancient systems that are awakening will be shared equally among all species. The weapons that could destroy worlds will be dismantled. The technologies that could advance civilizations will be given freely to everyone." He looked directly into the camera, speaking to every intelligent being in the galaxy. "We are not your rulers returning to reclaim a throne. We are your partners. Ready to work together to build something greater than any empire? The galaxy belongs to all of us now." The response was immediate. Across space, the approaching war fleets stopped their advance. On thousands of worlds, beings who had been preparing for conflict began to reconsider their positions. Zeth Kolar's crystalline form appeared on the screen. The first ones have chosen wisdom over power, just as their ancestors did. The Galactic Council recognizes humanity not as rulers, but as equal partners in our shared future. One by one, the alien species added their voices to the agreement. Even the proud Draconi eventually agreed to the new partnership. Impressed by humanity's rejection of easy power, Jake looked out at the stars and thought about the message his ancestors had left. They had given their descendants a choice between reclaiming their inheritance or forging a new path. Humanity had chosen to forge ahead, and in doing so, they had created something their ancestors never could have imagined. A galaxy united not by conquest or genetic programming, but by the simple decision to work together as equals. Ones had returned not as conquerors, but as partners in the greatest adventure the galaxy had ever known. 6 months after the Great Revelation, the galaxy was still adjusting to its new reality. The massive space station that had once been the center of alien authority was now buzzing with activity from dozens of species, working together on projects that would have been impossible before. Jake Martinez walked through the engineering sections where humans and aliens labored side by side. In one bay, Amy Foster worked with a team of Zerathi communication specialists to decode ancient human transmission protocols. Their combined efforts had already unlocked star charts, showing the locations of thousands of lost human colonies. "Luck finding survivors?" Jake asked, as he stopped at Amy's workstation. Amy looked up from a crystalline display showing signal patterns from distant stars. "We've detected automated distress beacons from 17 systems. Some of them are still transmitting after 12 million years. If there are human settlements that survive the Great Forgetting, we might actually find them." In the next section, Tony Clark was working with Morphin engineers to understand the ancient power systems. The tentacled aliens had proven surprisingly good at handling the delicate energy matrices that powered human technology. "We figured out how to safely shut down the weapon platforms," Tony reported when Jake approached. "It turns out the systems have a built-in ethical override. They won't fire on civilian targets or engage in planetary bombardment. Our ancestors programmed them to be defensive only." The automatic weapons had been one of his biggest concerns. Ancient human war machines powerful enough to destroy star systems were not something he wanted floating around the galaxy without proper control. Lisa. Park had set up a research center in the station's largest conference room. The walls were covered with holographic displays showing human artifacts, genetic records, and historical timelines. She was working with scientists from every major species to piece together the complete story of the first ones. "Jake, you have to see this," Lisa said excitedly when he entered her workspace. "We found evidence that the Great Forgetting wasn't just about erasing human memories. Our ancestors deliberately scattered different pieces of advanced technology among different species." She pointed to a complex diagram showing technology distribution across the galaxy. The Zarathi got data storage and communication systems. The Morphins received biotechnology and genetic manipulation tools. The Cathora inherited manufacturing and construction techniques. Each species was given pieces of the puzzle, but none had the complete picture. They wanted to make sure no single species could dominate the others, Jake realized. Even after they left, they were still protecting the balance of power. Dr. Helen Wade joined the conversation. She had been studying the psychological profiles of the created species, trying to understand how 12 million years of genetic programming had shaped their cultures. "It's remarkable how well it worked," Helen said. "Each species developed their own identity and culture, but they all retained the cooperative instincts that humans programmed into their ancestors. That's why the Galactic Council existed in the first place. They were unconsciously following human social models." Meanwhile, Ryan Bell was in the station's security center with representatives from multiple species, working to establish new protocols for galactic peacekeeping. The discovery that humans had created all intelligent life in the galaxy had caused some dangerous reactions among extremist groups. "The Draconi separatists are still causing trouble on the Outer Rim," Ryan reported when Jake visited the security briefing. "They're trying to convince other species that humans are lying about giving up power. Some of them think this is all an elaborate trick to make conquest easier. How do we prove we're serious about partnership?" Jake asked. Ceth single quote, Kala, who had become the station's new coordinator, answered from his position at the central console. "Time and actions will prove your intentions." Already, many species see the benefits of cooperation. The shared technology. Programs are advancing science faster than any single species could manage alone. Jake walked to the observation deck where he often went to think. Through the massive windows, he could see ships from dozens of species docked at the station. Human vessels worked alongside alien craft, their crews learning from each other and sharing discoveries. Alina Ross found him there as evening fell across the station. The security chief had been coordinating with Earth Command to establish new policies for humanity's role in galactic affairs. "The politicians back home are still arguing about whether you made the right choice," Alina reported. "Colonel Price and his supporters think we gave away the greatest opportunity in human history." "Maybe we did," Jake admitted.
Ow.
"Our ancestors could have ruled the galaxy forever if they had wanted to. Instead, they chose to step back and let their creations grow. And now we're doing the same thing," Elena observed. "The question is whether future generations will thank us or curse us for it." Jake thought about the message from the last human emperor that Lisa had found in the archives. The choice between reclaiming inheritance or forging a new path. Humanity had chosen the harder road, but also the more hopeful one. A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Jake activated the communication panel and saw Amy's excited face appear on the screen. "Commander, you need to get down here immediately," Amy said breathlessly. "We've made contact with one of the lost colonies. There are humans out there who never forgot who they were." Jake hurried back to the communication center, where Amy and her team were gathered around a long-range transmission console. The signal was weak and distorted, but unmistakably human. This is Captain Sarah Williams of the colony ship New Earth, came a voice across the centuries. We have maintained the watch as our ancestors commanded. We have preserved the knowledge and waited for the day when our people would return to the stars. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Somewhere in the galaxy, humans had survived the Great Forgetting. They had kept the old knowledge alive and waited 12 million years for this moment. Captain Williams, Jake responded, his voice steady despite his excitement. This is Commander Jake Martinez, representing the United Earth Alliance. We have returned to the galaxy and discovered our true heritage. We are coming to find you. As the long-range communication continued, Jake realized that humanity's story was far from over. They had found their place in the galaxy not as rulers or subjects, but as partners in a vast community of species they had helped create. And somewhere among the stars, other humans were waiting to rejoin the family they had never forgotten. The first ones had returned, not to reclaim an empire, but to help build something even greater.